A woman's body was brought to the morgue. She died in a very strange way. There were no wounds on her body, but all the joints in her body were broken.
How do you break your wrists and ankles without any outward signs?
The gray eyeballs showed that the woman had been dead for many days, but when the coroner, Lao Bai, made a cut, a large amount of blood gushed out. This shows that the woman had just died.
They're not supposed to bleed like that.
Then his son, Nick, opened the woman's mouth. The woman's tongue had disappeared, so Old Bai speculated that the woman's hands and feet were tied for a long time, causing her joints to break. The tongue was cut off to prevent her from making a sound, but that's not enough for a fatal injury. To know the real cause of death, we need to deconstruct the woman's body. When Bai cut open her lungs, the inside was severely blackened.
She could smoke 10 packs a day for 30 years. Let me explain this.
This level of lung damage should be accompanied by third-degree burns to the skin, but her skin was intact. It's like finding a bullet in the brain, but there's no sign of a gunshot wound. Then Bai took out her heart. He found many knife marks of different sizes. This made father and son even more puzzled. All the organs were severely damaged, but there was no trauma on the surface of the body. At that moment, suddenly there was a strange sound from outside the door. Nick went to the corridor to check. He searched all the rooms, but found nothing unusual. Just as he was about to leave, a dark figure reflected in the hallway mirror. Nick walked boldly down the hall. The hallway was empty. Nick thought he'd been too nervous to see it. When he returned to the autopsy room, his father made a new discovery. Whitey found a ball of white burlap in the woman's stomach. When he opened it, there was a tooth wrapped inside. It looks like it belongs to the corpse. There was also a mysterious pattern on the linen, and some Roman numerals.
Stomach acid should have dissolved this thing. I mean, the fact that it's intact at all is amazing.
Then he realized that the body had 2 layers of skin. After splitting it apart, father and son were shocked. The inside of the skin was also covered with the mysterious pattern. Nick suddenly realized this is not just a kidnapping and murder. It's more like some kind of ancient ritual.
Almost like a human sacrifice.
The woman's body was probably a sacrifice. Suddenly a strange sound came out of the radio.
He told me something. It's all about the devil, and I learned to hate him.
Hey, Dad?
She said he causes trouble when you
I think maybe we should get out of here.
Singing round so let the sun shine.
And when he regained his composure, Nick turned on his flashlight and realized all the bodies in the morgue were gone. They didn't dare to stay, rushed to hide in the office. But before they could get back to their senses, there was the sound of a bell outside. This sound is too familiar to them. It's specially hung at the ankles of corpses to prevent them from swindling. As the sound of the bell got closer and closer, Nick slowly leaned down. The man glanced out through the door. A corpse's foot with a bell suddenly appears. The body stops outside the door. It started banging on the door. Father and son hurriedly moved the cabinet to block it. Soon there was no more movement outside. The two of them finally breathed a sigh of relief, one after another. The paranormal events. Nick felt that there was something wrong with the corpse. Just as he finished speaking, Old Bai noticed a wound on his wrist. This is when he was digging up the corpse. He was accidentally cut by the female corpse's ribs. Old Bai rushed to the bathroom to rinse it off. At that moment, a strange scene happened. The basement was originally airtight. The shower curtain in the bathroom was blown by the wind. Old Bai was about to pull it open. Nick suddenly realized. Luckily, there was nothing inside. Nick was relieved. When Nick opened the door, Nick's father was on the floor. He said his attacker had the same gray eyes as the corpse. White finally believed his son's theory. The two of them didn't think any more about it. They went back to the autopsy room to burn the woman's body. Looking at the blazing fire in front of them, father and son finally relaxed. But the next moment the flames rose to the sky. The whole autopsy room ignited. Old Bai rushed to take out the fire extinguisher to put out the fire. As the flames were extinguished, Nick was shocked to find the woman's body was intact. The two of them turned around and ran, but the elevator closed strangely. At the same time, at the end of the corridor came the familiar sound of a bell. With the sound getting closer and closer, Old Bai saw that it was the body of a man who had disappeared before. Nick used all his strength to open the elevator door. He hurriedly pulled his father inside, but the elevator door wouldn't close. With the lights going out, the sound of the bell was getting closer and closer. Old Bai took a knife and slashed it down, but he went out to sea, collapsed on the ground. It was his girlfriend who came to visit Nick. He didn't have time to grieve. White hurriedly dragged his son into the elevator. Nick believes that all this is the female corpse is the culprit. Since the beginning of the reconstruction. The coroner's office has been experiencing paranormal phenomena. It seems that something has been stopping them. If they don't find out the truth, they'll probably die here. So father and son went back to the autopsy room again. Turn on the surgical light. Shine it on the corpse's head. Take the scalpel. We're going to make a final craniotomy on the body. Nick removed a piece of brain tissue under the microscope. When they saw the results, both father and son were stunned because the woman's brain cells were alive, which meant she wasn't dead at all.
She's still alive.
They couldn't figure it out. After the belly was peeled open and the internal organs were taken out, after opening the skull, this woman is still alive. Now the only clue is the burlap taken from her stomach. Nick folded it in half. 2 lines of letters appeared.
Leviticus 20:27.
Oldby rushed to look for them in his book. According to the clue, finally found the answer. The woman died in 1693. Some people used the name of religion to eliminate opponents. And the body of the woman in front of us is a witch who was killed by mistake more than 300 years ago. The body of the woman refused to die because of the grievances in her body. She's taking revenge on those who harmed her body. He was accidentally cut by the witch's ribs due to the blood infection. The same pattern appeared on the inside of his skin. At that moment, suddenly there was a crash at the door. Nick pressed against the door. Old White looked at the scene in front of him and seemed to understand what was going on.
I won't fight you. Please. Please. Don't hurt him. Let me help you.
As soon as he finished speaking, a strange phenomenon appeared on his body. His arms and legs were broken at the same time. He vomited smoke and fell to the ground. Then his eyes became cloudy. At the same time, the woman's arms and legs began to return to normal. As the blood flowed back, the cloudy eyeballs slowly turned black. Then all the lights in the autopsy room turned on automatically. The corpses also returned to their original state. In a trance, Nick suddenly heard someone calling his name. It was the police. He rushed down the stairs to the door. He dragged the knob with all his might, but the door wouldn't open. The police kept urging him to open the door. To open the door. As Nick screamed at the top of his lungs, Nick's voice turned into a weird song.
Open up your heart and let the sun shine.
Nick finally realized the female corpse's revenge is not over. The familiar sound of bells came from downstairs again, but when Nick looked down, there was nothing. The next day the police came to the scene. They found that it was another strange murder case because everyone there was dead. No one knew what had happened, except for the bodies of Whitey and Nick. The unidentified woman's body was still intact. Then the police decided to send the body to a nearby university laboratory for research. But at that moment,